وسهلا بكل الذين انضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNZK 690 AM and WZMZ 700 AM.
Today's program is brought to you by Sling TV.
My favorite TV channel has been removed. I was ripped off.
Don't be fooled by unauthorized TV services. You could not only lose your favorite TV channels, but also lose your money. Keep your eyes out and avoid offers that just seem too good to be true. There are numerous companies and TV services that are selling a set-top box or providing a website who claims to have rights to distribute NBC, Al Jazeera, Art, and many other Arabic TV channels.
Then who is legally authorized to provide my favorite TV channels in the U.S.?
Dish Network and Sling International provide your favorite TV channels and programs. For more information, go to www.dishnetwork.com/Arabic or www.sling.com/Arabic and sign up today and watch your favorite TV programs and save money.
لقد حذفت قنواتي المفضلة. هذه سرقة.
لا تنخدعوا بالقنوات التلفزيونية غير المرخصة، ستخسرون قنواتكم المفضلة وتضيعون نقودكم. لا تلتفتوا إلى العروض البراقة الزائفة. هنالك العديد من الشركات التي تبيع أجهزة استقبال القنوات التلفزيونية والتي تدعي امتلاك حقوق توزيع قنوات NBC، الجزيرة وART وغيرها.
ولكن من هي الجهة المرخصة قانونيا لتزويدنا بقنواتنا المفضلة في الولايات المتحدة؟
ديش نتورك وسلينج انترناشنال توفران لكم هذه القنوات والبرامج. لمزيد من المعلومات يمكنكم الدخول على الرابط www.dishnetwork.com/Arabic و www.sling.com/Arabic. اشتركوا الآن، وفروا نقودكم وشاهدوا قنواتكم المفضلة.
Good morning, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to another great program on Radio Baladi on US Arab Radio. We're discussing this morning a very important and timely topic, namely human rights issues in America today, approaches and challenges. From Ferguson to Baltimore, from Trayvon Martin to Eric Garner, and from the Arab American students who were shot in North Carolina to the woman who was denied service in Michigan because of her hijab, her headscarf. Human rights issues remain to be at the forefront of the public's interest and attention, and they remain to occupy the main headlines in most mainstream media today. As the demographics of American society keep changing due to the increasing wave of immigration, which invites racial, ethnic, and religious diversity, it becomes crucial to address human rights issues more than ever before, whether they have to do with police brutality, racial injustice, gender inequity in the workplace, or fair housing, fighting hate crimes, and equal employment, and safeguarding the welfare of people with disabilities. With me this morning discussing these very important and timely issues are two distinguished guests in the human rights field, Mr. Russell Kimball and Mr. James Stowe. Mr. Russell Kimball is the founder of the United Council of African American Organizations in Montgomery County, Maryland, and the current chairman of the Human Rights Commission for Montgomery County, Maryland. He is the past president of Alpha Phi Alpha Iota Epsilon Lambda chapter and the founder of the Alpha Smithville School Museum in Silver Spring, Maryland. It was under his presidency that the Martin Luther King Memorial effort was reinvigorated and accepted by the General Organization of Alpha Phi Alpha. On October 12, 2014, Mr. Russell Kimball was inducted into the Montgomery County Human Rights Hall of Fame. He has been a member of the Montgomery County Human Rights Commission for 12 years before becoming its chairman. Mr. Kimball has served on the Montgomery County, Prince George's County's United Gang Task Force. He was a member of the Montgomery County Public Schools Advisory Board for curriculums for years 2003 to 2005. He is a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He is currently a member of the Montgomery County Community Liaison Team for the Department of Police. He recently joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to conduct a march opposing the grand jury's decision on police killings of black boys and men. My second guest this morning, Mr. James Stowe, is currently the director of the Montgomery County, Maryland Office of Human Rights, which plays a leading role in educating people about cultural diversity, identifying and resolving community tensions, and eliminating racial discrimination, as it works towards creating a culture of service and a climate of fairness and inclusion. Mr. Stowe is the fourth director of the Montgomery County Office of Human Rights in its historic 52-year existence, and he has been instrumental in developing new program initiatives and repositioning the office for success in the 21st century. He serves as the Atlantic Region representative of the International Association of Official Human Rights and is past president of the organization. During his membership, he has held numerous offices and committee assignments within the organization. He is also currently the Atlantic Region's vice president and past president of the National Association of Human Rights Workers. He is a trained mediator with certification from Capital University Law School in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and my honor to have both of you on the show today. And I'd like to start with Mr. Russell Kimball. We are seeing all of these incidents in the media about, the police brutality, killing of young black men. I mean, for someone looking at it from the outside, like myself, I've been in the U.S. for 8 years now. I have to ask the question, are we seeing a backlash in issues of human rights in contemporary America today? We have seen gains, we have seen progress moving forward, we have seen, an African-American president in the U.S. for the first time. And then I look at all of these incidents in the news and I cannot help but ask, are we seeing a backlash in human rights and racial justice issues today in the U.S.?
I would hope not, but it appears to me, and I have 4 children, 3 of them are sons, and I worry about them whenever they go out on the streets. But it appears to me that there is a move in this country from the law enforcement end as well as the legal end to try to keep people down. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, yes.
Oh, okay, very good. And this is a combination of, this could be a combination of a backlash because, like, for example, in Montgomery County has become a minority county, which means that there are more people here who are not from Europe or have a European descent. So there's a pushback that whenever you lose control of something, you want to hold on to it, you're going to use whatever means necessary. Unfortunately, violence has become a part of that pushback. And we see it not only in the African American young men, but we see it in other ethnic groups, as you mentioned in your introduction.
Director James Stowe, if I was to ask you the very same question I asked Chairman Russell Kimball about whether we are seeing a backlash in the status of human rights issues, especially when it comes to racial justice, do you share the same view that Mr. Campbell just expressed now?
I think primarily there is certainly some of the same thought I would have on this issue. But I must say that the thing that I believe is driving the dynamics that you just described, Dr. Camise, really speaks to the level of the rapid nature of the change that we see occurring around the world. With now almost every piece of information being available to everyone instantaneously. I think creates a whole different environment than what would have been in the past as an example. And so when something happens, as an example, in Charleston, South Carolina, when the 9 people were killed there in the local church, that was immediately around the world in less than a couple of hours. And so you see that happening around. When people see change happening so quickly, many people are dismayed by that and I think end up in some instances, taking action that they might not normally take had they had more time to consider the change and to consider what was happening to them. So I think you're seeing that now, certainly here in the United States, where the change and not only the shift in demographics, as you talked about in your opening, occurring so quickly. And I would agree with the chairman very much in this regard, is that those who have been in positions of power and influence change in terms of exchanging power and that influence does not happen very easily by those who have had it and by those who have been able to command what happens in the workplace, what happens in the marketplace, what happens in where we live and play and worship. All those things have been part of the dominant culture for a long period of time and exclusive right to that particular group of folks. So I think you're starting to see this happening in such a way, but I believe it's the rapidity, the rapidness of the change that's occurring that really is driving all of the various actions that you get.
So I think it's a combination of many different factors, as both of you rightly pointed out, change in demographics, as well as, some areas becoming majority-minority areas, and also the immediacy of spreading the messages and the information through the media makes these kinds of incidents and events more, prominent in the media sphere. And therefore, I think, in a way, this kind of media immediacy and attention could be a way or a tool to help overcome these kinds of incidents in the future and hopefully fight them. Mr. Russell Kimball, would you agree with me on this point that the coverage, the increased coverage and immediate coverage by media outlets of incidents, let's say of shootings of young black men and so on, would have a role in terms of fighting these kinds of negative incidents of police brutality?
Yes, I agree with what you said there, because what we have found is if something happened, like as the Director Stowe mentioned, if something happened now, within half an hour, it's pretty much around the world. Say 30 years ago, we wouldn't have had that immediacy. We would have had a chance to think it out and sort it out. We don't have that time anymore. We're drawing conclusions so quickly, and a lot of times the conclusions are wrong.
That's a very important point as well. And I think now there's also a move by the police department to have officers wear, cameras, on-body cameras, in order to detect whatever is happening, whatever is going on in, these kinds of incidents when they happen. Do you think this is a positive thing, Mr. Stowe, that the idea that the officers can now be obligated to wear these body cameras? In 1 minute, please, because we have to go to a commercial break.
I think it's a good idea, but every good idea also has another side to it, because the camera also shows both ways. It shows the action of the police officer, but it also will show the action of the resident, of the citizen that may be in fact observed or may be engaged in that particular interaction with the police officer. So we're going to kind of really to see what the results of this is going to be. Yes, we will have a recorded record of that interaction between the police officer and that resident and citizen, but yes, we will also have an idea of the behavior that police officer is encountering. In so many instances, we don't always know what sometimes preceded what we see on television or in news reports. We sort of see the actual impact, the action taking place, but we don't see what led up to it, and sometimes we don't see what happens actually after it either. And so this will be a real test for us really to see whether or not we, in fact, need this much information. I must comment on your previous question as well, Dr. Kamis, because here is part of the problem. Part of the problem with news coverage and news media is that so many of us rely only on that news media, on that news coverage for our information. We don't check it out. We don't, in fact, try to see other sources. We lock into whatever it is that we think appeals to our sense of the reality that we see around us. So if we listen to a conservative broadcast, that's all we listen to. If we listen to a liberal broadcast, that's all we listen to, so forth and so on. So you don't have a chance really to really understand beyond that newscaster or that particular correspondent's point of view. And as you well know, being in your field of work in communication, University of Maryland, you have this issue that often comes up. You're always looking at it through the filter, the eye, the voice of whomever's telling the story. And so if people do not, in fact, move beyond just what they see or hear or even read in some instances and have other sources to compare what they've been able to see or hear, then they, I believe, are getting a very one-sided perspective on what would have occurred. So media great, yes, absolutely, because as we haven't had in the past, we didn't know what was going on. Sometimes we were in a sense of ignorance and, again, unknowing. But
absolutely.
Sometimes
we revisit this important topic with my guest on this show.
It's really important to understand.
Yeah, right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center will help get your child on the right track. The highly qualified staff works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. We can help nurture important personality traits with the use of educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. All meals can be provided and we can arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Dearborn Heights on Warren, in Westland on Ann Arbor Trail, and in Troy on DeQuinder.
This is Dr. Sahar Kamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNZK 690 AM and WZMZ 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Kamis, Associate Professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Maryland. We're discussing today a very important and timely topic, human rights issues in America today, approaches and challenges. And with me this morning are two distinguished guests in the human rights field, Mr. Russell Campbell and Mr. James Stowe with the Office of Human Rights in Montgomery County, Maryland. Chairman Russell, if I was to come back to you, I really was interested to find out more about the march which you joined with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, opposing the grand jury's decision on police killings of black boys and men. Can you comment a little bit on this march and what it was all about and what it tried to achieve?
Both Director Stowe and myself was involved with this. It was just after the shooting of the person in, I think it was Ferguson. We organized a march that would show community support of the strength that is needed to offset this type of police brutality. We wanted to show in a very graphic way that we are opposed to that, and we're going to be supporting a fair play, and we're going to have a need to make sure that our young men and women are protected by the police and not shot at by the police. So the march was designed to be an outward manifestation of that particular view. We also marched all the way down into the government centers of Montgomery County, particularly, and many of our organizations, our fraternities, our churches, our politicians spoke to the issue, and that showed a wide support. Now, you also mentioned something that dealing with the cameras. We had a police presentation the other day showing how these cameras work. One of the things about the cameras that we have to be concerned about, and as well as what Director Stowe said, is the privacy issues that can be violated by the cameras. For example, if I call a policeman coming to my house and they have the camera on and they take pictures of damages that were done or whatever the case may be, then that becomes public, and that can be a problem. So they have to sort through that to make sure that my privacy is not violated by the use of the camera.
Excellent. These are very good points. Thank you so much. And Director Jim Stowe, if I was to ask you the question about the Office of Human Rights. When I say to people, I'm proudly serving myself as a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission under the leadership of both of you, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be included in this great team. When I say to people I'm serving on the Human Rights Commission, they ask, so what are you doing? What is the nature of the work that the Human Rights Commission is actually involved in? So if you can please comment on this point about the nature of the work that the Human Rights Commission is actually carrying out or doing in a nutshell, that would be great, please.
We are the civil rights, human rights organization for Montgomery County. And for us, what that really means is trying to ensure the protection and the compliance with civil rights laws in Montgomery County. These laws would include protections in persons trying to obtain employment in Montgomery County, trying to be able to obtain an apartment or buy a home would be part of our protected area as well as trying to enter and have access to public places, public transportation as an example, other places for which people gather, etc. So these are the kinds of things that are part of what we do from a network perspective. And so if people believe that they have had issues in obtaining these various things I've described, they have the right to come to our offices and file complaints that outline the requirements for every person involved in these areas to, in fact, be able then to not only provide, but also have that access for persons. If they do not do these kinds of things, then we have then the right then to pursue remedies for individuals who have these complaints. We also serve as the barometer for issues of concern in the area of race relations, in the area of how we deal with immigrants to our community, in areas that have to do with violence that may be occurring based upon issues of race and religion, those kind of factors. All those things come to our offices to try to work and to deal with, to mediate in some instances, to try to resolve and to bring matters of calmness back to our community. So we are that source within Montgomery County that serves. And so when persons ask that question about who we are and what we do, this is the work that we do that one might imagine, with a county of over 1 million people, is very diverse and oftentimes very dynamic in terms of where things happen and when things occur. But it's always our goal then to bring fairness and equity to all of our residents who make their homes in Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And a lot of people do not know about the fact that they can actually file a complaint and get their own cases reviewed by the commission and, being given a fair assessment of the case. Chairman Russell, what is the process through which a person can actually file a complaint, let's say, for example, in a case of discrimination or being, illegitimately denied a service or not being given fair housing and so on? What are the steps and the procedure the person can go through in order to get his or her complaint considered by the Human Rights Commission?
Before it comes to the commission itself, it goes to the department. The Department of Human Rights, which is Director Stowe's department, has a series of forms. You can fill out a form. You can do it by telephone. You can do it by coming to the office, or you can have us go online and do it. We try to make it easy. And initially, people may not want to have their names known, so it's all confidential. And once it goes to the department, then they go through a process of looking into what the complaint is, and they have a very detailed way of doing that. And then I would encourage people in Montgomery County, especially this very week, if they're going to the fair, there's a the agricultural fair that's going on right now. The Human Rights Department has a booth out there where they can actually get one of these forms and fill it out. Once they fill it out, then it becomes something that they work through to try to find the solution. Now, once they do the investigation, if they find that there is a problem, then they adjudicate it, and hopefully they can solve it before it comes to the commission. The only time it will come to the commission as a problem is if it has to be further investigated, or if the solution is not acceptable to the party, then it may come to us.
Excellent. And Director Jim Stew, in just like 1 or 2 minutes, you are a trained mediator. A lot of people do not know what that means to be a mediator. What does this mediation process actually entail? If you can comment on this before we go to our commercial break, please.
Mediation really is the opportunity for the parties involved to settle the concern, to resolve the issue, resolve the problem. And a mediator serves a role as being the person who sort of referees, who ensures then that both sides get heard and that both sides understand and compromise on trying to resolve the problem. Oftentimes, problems are so large and so difficult for two people to do it on their own. You need someone else in the room who's not a part of either one of the concerns, that can be the person that can ensure then that each other is heard, and more importantly, that people understand then that there is a common ground that may be able to be reached if either party is reasonable enough and able then to compromise on what that settlement or solution actually can be. In the mediation process, people must come to the table agreeing to be at the table. If either of the parties that are trying to settle the matter do not want to mediate, then a mediation does not work. You have to come willingly to the process. And once you sit down and actually go through the process, you have to also be willing then to accept the outcome. And so all along the way is a agreed upon solution or in this case strategy to reach a solution, and one that can be in fact very successful if folks are willing to come to the table voluntarily and really have it the very intent to resolve the problem.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So basically the process of mediation trying to bring together the two different parties in a certain conflict or situation where there is conflict of interest, whether it's like a landlord and a tenant or an employer and employee, and they have a certain complaint, and the Office of Human Rights then reviews the case and brings them to the table in an effort to try to resolve the conflict between the two parties based on their willingness to sit on the table and to accept the mediation process. Excellent point. We will revisit again this important topic right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana Keirus.
Most people who sit in my office across from my desk are hurting on so many levels. One thing people do not know about medical malpractice is that the statute of limitation, meaning the time that you have to bring suit against a doctor, a hospital, is 2 years. In medical malpractice, that's a very, very short period of time. Not every lawyer is an advocate, but every lawyer should be an advocate.
Let Jumana Keirus protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana Keirus at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects to provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNDK 690 AM and WZMZ 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We are discussing today an important and timely topic, the human rights issues in America today, approaches and challenges. Mr. Russell Kimball, I want to focus on something that you mentioned here in your own bio, which I find to be very interesting, which is being a member of the Unified Gang Task Force for Montgomery County and Prince George's County. Can you please comment a little bit on what that means and what it entails?
Yes, over the last few years, there had been gang problems in both Prince George's County and in Montgomery County. And these gang problems resulted from a large influx of Hispanic gangs, primarily from the Central America. It was, if you recall, during that time there was a civil war going on in certain parts of Central America. A lot of the refugees came up here, and many of them brought their feelings with them. As a result of that, there was a tremendous increase in gang violence. And so the county executives of both counties formed this group. And the purpose of the group is to try to come up with ways of resolving the gang violence and how we could deal with it. Things like tattoos, things like the language barriers. And we had to address all of these issues to try to come up with ways of having people live with each other in harmony and not bringing the war that they had in Central America here in Central Montgomery County or Prince George's County. So I was selected to be a part of that committee or that commission to help see how we could resolve this. And we came up with all types of programs, which is too numerous to talk about here, but it did have a positive impact on gang violence in those two counties.
So you did actually see some positive outcomes or positive results as a result of the inclusion of this gang task force.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You did see some positive outcomes and positive results as an outcome of being engaged in this unified gang task force.
Oh, yes, very much so. We had a 5-step process of project to make sure that as immigrants came in from these areas, we would help them assimilate into the culture that we have here, so they would not feel isolated. People go to games because they feel that they have no place else to go. And the gangs, of course, take advantage of that by building on that. There was a gang called MS-13, and this was a nationwide effort. It was, certain degrees of it didn't only exist in California or some other isolated place like that, but we're all over the country. So we just had to try to deal with what we had here, and even you get a tattoo identifying who you are. We show them and work with them to try to get them out of the gangs, give them a different kind of lifestyle, and get rid of the tattoos.
So basically, that's an important point to have them included, the idea of inclusion into the society and having them integrated in society so as not to be affiliated with these gangs, which sometimes provide the community or the family that they are lacking or missing. Director James, too, if I was to ask you the question about the program on fair housing, in particular, and fair employment. These are two things that I know the Human Rights Commission is engaged in, but not very many people know what that means or what that entails. Can you comment on the nature of these two particular initiatives, please?
Let's take fair housing for a second. Basically what that program is about is that in Montgomery County and many places around the United States, there is a prohibition, there is a law against people being discriminated in their attempt to rent an apartment or to buy a home or to have any other real estate transaction. Excuse me. And in those instances, persons have to merely just to file a complaint with our office, as an example, or similar offices in other parts of the country, that would be suggestive of the fact that they tried to go and rent an apartment and were not able to do so. Let me give you an example about what I mean by that very quickly. Let's just say someone goes and say reads an ad that says an apartment is available at a given address. And someone calls about that apartment is still vacant, it's still available, and everything seems to be fine. When they actually go to rent that apartment, all of a sudden when they come into the door of the leasing office and begin to inquire about the vacant apartment, and let's just say that person comes in, maybe speaks with an accent, or maybe comes in and maybe a person that may be African American, as an example. And all of a sudden, they find out from the leasing agent that the apartment that they thought was vacant is no longer available. What happened? And so that question ought to be asked by someone in that situation that I described. And that really does not sound right. It doesn't sound right because that particular example of what happened is illegal, or could be illegal in this case. And so we ask persons then who may be experiencing that circumstance or that situation to come to our offices, tell us about it, and let us do an investigation to find out whether or not, if indeed there was discrimination going on that prevented him or her being able to obtain that apartment. In the area of employment, a similar kind of thing may very well happen. A job may be open, you may be excited about that job, and go in and actually apply for the job, and all of a sudden that job is no longer open, no longer available. Maybe someone who's already employed by a company, and you may be able to be doing fairly well. But you said you want to actually go for a promotional opportunity. And somehow or another, someone who looks like you, if you're African American, if you happen to be a female, if you happen to speak with an accent or wear a hijab, all those things could be factors. And so when you're there trying to get that promotion, all of a sudden you look around and you never seem to be able to get an interview. Or if you get an interview, sometimes it seems that you're never able then to actually get the job. You believe you are qualified for the job. You think you've met all the requirements for the job. But somehow or another, you never seem to get that opportunity for a promotion. There may be, in fact, discrimination going on. So again, we then advise people to come to our offices, share that story with us, and let our investigators do an investigation to see whether or not there may be discrimination actually going on in that process. So those two areas, housing and employment, we do cover at the Office of Human Rights and do invite people in Montgomery County to come out and to share those stories with us and let us do the legwork and doing the investigation to see whether or not you've been treated fairly or not.
These are very important points, and not very many people know about these kinds of programs that exist actually, and they don't know that they have the right to file complaints in these cases. But I'm glad that the media is now focusing on some of these issues. We have seen the Supreme Court, win in favor of the lady who was discriminated against getting a job because of her hijab or scarf, and they actually said that she has every right to get the job, and that her hijab or headscarf should not play a role in denying her a job. So these kinds of incidents are very important when the media actually focuses on. Chairman Campbell, if you want to also comment on this, the idea of the media focusing on such incidents and therefore bringing attention to cases of discrimination against people because of ethnicity, color, religion, or even sometimes the dress code.
What I found out in my work in dealing with demonstrations is that the press was instrumental in the successes that Martin Luther King had during the civil rights movement and any other movement we're going to have. The press has got to be there. It is ironic that you and I are having this conversation on this radio station that is based in Livonia, Michigan, because I'm from Detroit. And I became involved in the civil rights movement when I was in high school. I met Martin Luther King back in 1957, and he inspired me, and I became very much an activist. And it was in Livonia, and I was listening to your commercial, and it was kind of ironic also. It was in Livonia that I had my first demonstration against discrimination. That was back in 1960, though. It's a total different environment now. But what I wanted just to share with you is how the press was very instrumental in what we did then, and it's very instrumental in what we're doing now. Because if it's not for the press, we don't know what's going on in other parts. We don't know how this discrimination is being tied in together. By using the press and using it effectively, then we can find out. And one of the things that Director Stone mentioned is that we have to be careful that we're only getting our news from one source. My father was a Baptist preacher, and my mother was a teacher, and they instilled in me it's important to find out the facts from different sources, because that will help you get a total view of what's going on. And that's the way I try to use this to help motivate people and to move the movement forward.
Excellent. In just a couple of minutes before we go to our next commercial break, I'm glad you mentioned Martin Luther King, because that's one thing I was actually going to ask you about. How did you actually meet him, and in what context? I'm sure the listeners would be very interested to know that.
As I mentioned, my father was a Baptist preacher, and we used to have these national conferences. And in 1957, we were having a conference down in Birmingham, Alabama. Martin Luther King Jr. was the keynote speaker. I was 14. My interest in going to a conference was to meet young ladies, not to hear some preaching. However, they insisted that I hear this Martin Luther King. So I said, okay, then I don't have much of a choice to my parents. And I did, and I was very much impressed by what he said. And one of the things I remember him saying, and the only reason I remember it is because I wrote it down after I left. He said, we will not hate, we will not cooperate with wrong, we will win these battles through the laws of the land and through God/Allah as our leader. We will overcome. Now, I was 14. By the time I was 18, his influence got me to go to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, to join the movement to work with Julian Bond. And I mention that because Julian just died last week. He was one of the leaders of the movement. He was my handler. And through Martin Luther King Jr., who I also went to jail with in Albany, Georgia, because once I got down, because I felt that being in the South was where the revolution was on the front line. And so we went to Albany, Georgia, for demonstrations, and we ended up being arrested. So it's all tied in to the bonds of finding a stronger relationship with people who are trying to make positive things happen. And he's also a fraternity brother of mine. He also was a teacher at Morehouse College, and that was another reason I went to school there.
Very interesting. That's a very interesting story, and indeed it's an inspiration for all of us who are listening to this today. We will revisit this important topic right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشارد ليك في مدينة فارمington هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشارد ليك في مدينه فارمington هيلز، او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاقي عنوان لجميع طلباتكم. اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان. وينتري مانر صالات جميلة لمناسباتكم السعيدة. ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. أجمل القاعات لمناسباتكم السعيدة من حفلات ومؤتمرات. تتسع القاعات لأكثر من 1000 شخص. خدمة راقية، أسعار مناسبة. تذوقوا ألذ الأطعمة الشرقية والغربية وبأسعار خاصة ومناسبة لجميع المناسبات. تقع القاعة على 35100 فان بون رود في مدينة وين. للحجز اتصلوا بهم على 734-728-3020 734-728-3020. وينتري مانر للضيافة عنوان.
Hello and welcome to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome back to the program. Today we are discussing human rights issues in America today, approaches and challenges. And I just have been notified that we have many callers for the show today. Unfortunately, because of in the interest of time, we can only take one phone call. So we would like to invite one of the callers online to introduce himself or herself, please. Do we have a caller who is waiting to participate in the program with us? All right. It seems that we lost the caller. So I'll come back to you,
We're going to put him through, Doctor. Just
with an important question about actually you have reinvigorated the Martin Luther King Memorial effort. Under your leadership, the Martin Luther King Memorial effort has been reinvigorated and accepted by the General Organization of
Doctor, we have the caller in.
Alpha.
Okay, we have two conversations going, so I didn't hear the question.
Okay, do we have the caller online, Layla?
Yes, we do, Doctor. We've been trying to tell you that.
Okay, so can the caller introduce himself or herself?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Very, very interesting show. My question...
Can you introduce yourself first, please?
Go ahead. My question, since this broadcasting is for the American Arab population primarily, to both of your guests, how the American Arabs are being viewed in this particular issue of violence and human rights, and how the American Arabs being looked at from that point of view, since we, the Arab in general, at this time facing very, very difficult and violation of human rights all over the Arab world, and how we react to that. We helped South Africa as a people to get off the oppression by apartheid. So how we can, in the United States of America, make human life matter all over the world.
Thank you, sir. I think your point is well taken. Thank you for your involvement in the program today. And I'd ask the question to, either of my guests who would like to comment on that. The Arab American or also Muslim American population has been also suffering from some human rights violations, and it has been a target in some cases of incidents like the shooting of the 3 Arab American students in North Carolina. Are there any particular precautions that the Arab American or Muslim community should take in this respect, and how can they file for their own rights? Either of you who would like to comment on this, please.
I just want to make a quick comment. I was had an opportunity to speak to an Arab group here in Washington, D.C., and they showed me a comic book that was based upon the teachings of Martin Luther King that was given out during the Arab Spring movement. And I was kind of surprised to see it, but it's kind of expected that you have to establish a philosophy of nonviolence to meet violence. Now, that's a very tough thing to do. I'm from Detroit, so it was tough for me to do. But you see that this kind of thing can work. This kind of system can work, and it's worked throughout. Now, the problem we're having today, 50 years later, as far as Martin Luther King is concerned, only a few years later as far as the Arab Spring is concerned, is to try to take the negative aspects of our media and change it into a positive force. And that becomes the hardest part, because you have a country that is kind of gearing itself. Whenever we kind of find an enemy of of this country, we try to villainize them, demonize them. And so we have to come up with positive ways. And I always tell my folks, anybody go, listen, when you're opening doors for your rights, you have to help other people keep their rights. You just can't open them and close them. You got to make sure that comes through.
These are very, very important points indeed, and we have to bear them in mind. Combating violence with non-violence, knowing your rights, using the media, being effective. These are very important pieces of advice. Before we took the caller, actually, I was asking you about the efforts that you participated in under your presidency, that the Martin Luther King Memorial effort was reinvigorated and accepted by the General Organization of Alpha Phi Alpha. Can you please comment on this quickly, telling us what that really meant?
Very quickly, the idea of the memorial came about when 6 of my fraternity brothers sitting around a kitchen table with a can of beer. I'll just say it like it is. And talking about, we had just passed the law as far as the Martin Luther King holiday. And we said, one of the brothers said, his name was George Seeley. He said, what do you think about having a memorial? And we say, hey, it's a great idea. Our fraternity brothers say, hey, it's a great idea. Let's go ahead and do it. But the reality was, we thought that the process would be a $100,000 process. It came out to be a $100 million project, and it came very a lot more than we expected. But then we needed to press forward regardless, and this is why what we did under my administration was to make sure we had elements of that particular memorial taken care of by various committees, and getting the politicians, especially getting the politicians involved in what we were trying to do. By getting the politicians involved and getting the fraternity involved, then pretty soon we were able to raise the $100 million to build the project.
Excellent. That's a very important and very significant effort. Thank you for your role in this. And Director Stowe, in a couple of minutes, because we are running out of time, if you can just tell me quickly how you got interested in this kind of work. We heard from Chairman Russell how he got involved with the civil rights movement. What really brought you into this field of human rights work, and what would you like to achieve in the future? In like a couple of minutes, please.
One of the things that happened to me was, and I'll never forget this, was that as a young person, the Ku Klux Klan came to my community. In fact, we're already a part of my community, and they burned a cross in our backyard next to the yard we share with my uncle. I'll forget that burning of that cross, and how frightened I felt, and then to hear my uncle's voice as he called to check on us, see whether we were okay or not, how frightened he sounded. And from from that moment, I was probably 13 years old at that point in time, and when I saw that, it just really etched in my mind that there's got to be something better than this. Nobody should ever be this afraid of where they live, and particularly those of us who live in the United States of America. It's unacceptable even then. And from that point on, I began to have this attitude about how it is that I can be a part of trying to make things better. And not having any idea that one day I'd be doing this kind of work I'm doing today. But fate along the way has sort of led me to places, but always etched in my mind was that scene of my looking through my back door window at this one cross being burned and how it made me feel. So I think from that point in time, the sense of fairness and so forth was always a goal of mine to be able to try to explore and be a part of. And so it's led me to where I am today, a number of stops along the way. But today I've been doing this work now almost 30 years, and I'm very, very inspired by those who've come before me, people like, again, Chairman Russell Campbell and others who have worked so hard to get much of what we see today in way of our freedoms and way of our opportunities. For those of us who've come after them, we can't do anything but continue to work and be a part of making things even better for those coming yet after us. So that is my goal for the future. We want to make sure we're at a place in a time where we have the opportunity then to have our young people really understand how it is we got to where we are today. But more importantly, I believe what they can do to, as a caller talked about, to make this fair and accessible for every person from around the world. When they come to the United States of America, there'll be something special that happens when they get here, because access to all that we are and to be able to exercise their fullest potential ought to be then right and accessible to every single person that comes in our borders. So I believe then that's what this is all about. So my goal is to be a part of that and to do all I can to ensure that happens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And indeed, you mentioned something very important, building upon what has been achieved in the past and trying to take it a long way into the future and build on the successes and achievements of those who came before us in this very important field of human rights. I would like to very much thank my two distinguished guests today, Mr. Russell Campbell and Mr. James Toe, for being with me on the show. And also thank all of our listeners today on Radio Baladi on US Arab Radio. It's been a great show. Thank you so much for your participation and involvement, and thanks to my guests and listeners. This is Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we hope to have you again with us in another show in the future. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.